remember laying in bed going, this is terrifying. What are you doing? Your entire reputation is on the line. I had a boss and, called him and he said, you know what? You've always been there for us when we needed you, and now it's our turn. Like, don't ever be tempted to silence your voice because of what it would cost you, right? If I don't see any conflict or any disagreement or any pushing on each other, then I don't think that's a culture of integrity, right?
What do you believe is inside of you that makes you willing to tackle all of this?
I don't know.
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Teresa Tanner has spent 30 years in rooms that most leaders and people never get the opportunity to be in. But today isn't about just her resume. It's about what she saw on the way up, what she couldn't unsee, and a calling that she said yes to again and again. Sometimes with courage, sometimes with real fear, since long before she had a title to leverage. Along the way, she also picked up an Executive MBA at Xavier University, a place built on the idea that leadership is about character, not just competence. I can't think of a better living example of that than the woman who's across from me. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. This is going to be a real pleasure. Walking through a discussion around leadership decisions, life decisions, key, what my father's always trained me to call detours, right? They're not roadblocks. They're just detours. You just got to navigate your way around those. One of the things that I have found most profound with many leaders who make really tough, important decisions and are bold leaders is you've been making really tough decisions for a long, long time. And we've all been confronted with difficulties. And our audience knows firsthand what that feels like today and what it's felt like the last several decades. So thank you for being willing to sit down and have this discussion.
Of course. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So take me back a little bit. You had some early decisions to make when you had two young children. I think one, if I read correctly, was 13 days old when your daughter received a diagnosis. Did I read that right?
Just like less than 10 days old.
Less than 10 days old.
Yeah.
So your daughter got sick and you found out that Kayla was diagnosed, or what was that process when you found out she was sick? I think really sick.
Yeah. I was like a newly recovering mom. So I just brought my baby home from the hospital, had a newborn, and all of a sudden this toddler became very easy to kind of snuggle with, and was just really tired all the time. And I noticed wow, okay, I'm really tired and she's not requiring a lot of me. This is kind of cool. Until I realized it also wasn't normal. And then she spiked a fever and, got her into the pediatrician just thinking, no big deal. Let me get her on some antibiotics. And then one thing led to another and found out she had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And so here I was, a mom that, had just had a baby and, was trying to figure it all out. And all of a sudden I'm faced with a pretty serious thing going on with my daughter.
Yeah. Did you, where were you at that time? Were you in Cincinnati?
I was in Cincinnati working for McDonald's at the time. So really young mom in my early 20s, and, had a good job with them, had a lot of responsibility as a store manager. And immediately I'm like, well, I'm going to have to quit. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to figure this out, but I just got to figure it out. So it was kind of a hectic, rough kind of bump in my career, and didn't really know what to do about it.
And you were a new mom, so you were off work at the time and had to make some tough decisions to go back. Were you able with children's, I assume you quickly, she found her way to Children's Hospital.
Yes.
And how long did you end up staying out before going back to work?
Really just my maternity leave. I just had an incredible experience, and it was kind of one of the very first examples I saw of just kind of heroic leadership.
Mm.
I had a boss and, called him and I said, look, like, okay, I'm supposed to come back in a month, because I hadn't been out that long. And I said, but here's what's going on. So I don't know what to do. I mean, maybe I can go part-time. Maybe I can take a demotion. Maybe I can quit and come back after she's done with treatment. And he's like, yeah, maybe you could do all those things. Or maybe you could just keep doing your current job and getting paid what you're paid and work whenever you can.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, I don't think you understand. I have to be at clinic. She has to get treatment 3 times a week.
Wow.
Like maybe I can work 20 hours a week. And he said, you know what? You've always been there for us when we needed you. And now it's our turn. We'll just be there for you. And
What an
he
example.
just allowed me to just work however I wanted, which, that's like in the early 90s. So,
Yeah.
Remote work, and especially in that kind of industry where being there in person matters, right? Yeah. And he just decided to kind of work outside of the rule box and do something super generous for me. And it made a real impact on just like the difference a leader can make in someone's life.
Yeah. Well, when I hear that and I hear the impact you've had on so many leaders, the direct correlation between that leader's decisions and how that inspired you as we unpack today.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you, as you were going through some of the tough decisions to make early on, what did you find most helpful when you were making those decisions? Were there community around you supporting you? Were there friends? Were there just personal convictions? You knew I've got to go from this and go back to work and put all in. Your boss clearly said, we'll support you. Come back. We want you. We need your energy. But what other tough decisions did you have to make through that time period?
Yeah, I think, and I look back through my life, Mike, and anytime you're in any kind of chaos, right, where you're at this crossroads and there's a lot going on, I think the most important thing is you've got those values and principles that are underlying that tells you what's most important in this moment, right? And because often when, you're in a situation of chaos and fear and uncertainty, it's not your best cognitive thinking, right? So you've got to have some strong values type of muscles that are underlying that's going to kick in when maybe logic isn't. And you need to have a good community of people around you too that you can say like, look, I'm not at my best right now. I'm not sleeping. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. I'm uncertain. And so I think having that value underpinning as well as a community of wise counsel is like what I really relied on during that time.
Yeah. Were you involved in, did you have much civic engagement at that time that you were involved with, or did that lead you to starting to get involved with civic engagement?
No, I didn't really. That wasn't the phase of my life where I was giving back and had extra margin to do things. But it's definitely shaped me since then. Some of my work, Ronald McDonald House as an example, like that will always be a mission that's so important to me because I've walked in the footsteps of parents who are in that situation with critically ill children. And so definitely those experiences help just give me a greater awareness of other people's journeys. And I do believe that when we have capacity, we have a duty to kind of pay it forward, right?
Absolutely.
And help someone else along the way. Yeah.
So you spent 18 years with McDonald's. Were you always in Cincinnati, based in Cincinnati, or did you move to corporate Chicago?
Well, I did work with them all over. So Chicago, multi-states. So a lot of it, I was always, my permanent home was always here, but I was quite the road warrior for sure.
And you grew up through the HR organization?
No. I was actually like an operations person. I thought I had, early in my career, met one of the original owners of the franchise that had worked with Ray Kroc. And I was just so, I got the entrepreneur bug. I was so like, wow, that's what I want to do one time or one day. I want to own my own businesses and I want to have a bunch of these stores. And I thought that was my path. And then at one point, and I was doing well and I was getting all this development and they said, well, would you consider HR? And my first question was like, well, what did I do wrong? Like, why would you want me to go to HR? And it was supposed to be just a short-term rotation. They were going through kind of a HR transformation, really trying to make the function more strategic. And because I had the operational underpinning, they wanted someone that spoke the language of the business.
Yeah, knew the business.
And so I'm like, all right, I'll do this for a couple years. And then all of a sudden I fell into a new passion.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then what led you made a major transition.
Mm-hmm.
Couple things I want to tie together. So you were at McDonald's, you had a really successful run there.
Yeah.
When did you decide to go back and get your Executive MBA at Xavier University?
That really happened when I got into banking. So
you shifted from McDonald's over to Fifth Third.
Yeah. Well, short stop at Provident Bank in between, and then they got sold, and then I went to Fifth Third.
Okay.
And really loved it. Had a great run there. Got promoted very quickly, and started to see that that C-suite was a possibility for me. That could be something that I could attain. And it was then that I started thinking, okay, if that's going to be in my future, and I think I have a shot at that, how do I equip myself in the best way?
Yeah.
And started just looking at different programs, and Xavier was one that really stood out to me. And then I had friends who had experiences, and just one thing led to another, and I began that program. And it was amazing.
What was it that stood out to you when you were evaluating MBA programs? I'm assuming all over the country. And you said, boy, here's one right here that really most interests me.
So there was a lot on paper. First of all, it was very well respected as a business school. It was local. They seemed to have a great program in a time frame that was reasonable. Now, I didn't know that, a shorter time frame meant, way more hours and work.
Sure. But you could work and
consolidated kind of curricula. But then I think it was I remember doing the interview and talking with them, and I just saw so seen as a person, right?
Okay.
And so seen as an individual. And it was that personal touch. And I just walked away knowing, look, they really care about this program, but more importantly, they care about the humans in it.
Yeah.
And they're being very careful about curating the right cohort that can really thrive together.
Yeah.
So after I was done with that interview, I knew that's where I wanted to go.
The most effective executives didn't get there by following the conventional path. Xavier University's Executive MBA is built for leaders who are already succeeding and still want more. You'll learn alongside of ambitious peers and industry leaders, apply what you learn in real time, and do it all without putting your career on hold. Flexible enough to fit your life, unconventional enough to change it. Visit unconventionalpodcast.com/EMBA to learn more. Yeah, when we've had some really great in-depth conversations with Xavier, it came out how much our podcast brand and their Jesuit values of Magis, which is always asking what more can this be? What more can we do? How can we impact? And Cura Personalis, care for the whole person.
Yeah.
And how that shows up, which is a lot of what we do on the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, is we're talking about the whole person.
Yeah.
We want to understand, unpack even how we all get here. How do our values get formed? What experiences do we have? What access did we receive? And what did that access point mean to us? So we can encourage those listening to say, I could be that access point for someone else. Wow, look what this leader just did. Look what this individual just accomplished. So you've built inside of Fifth Third. Did you have the opportunity to build programs inside of McDonald's like you built inside of Fifth Third? Like I know you built an incredible concierge program inside of Fifth Third for associates. Did you do that at McDonald's as well?
In different ways, right? Now, big global corporation, and so changing something like across the entire system is a little bit more complicated at a company of that scale. But McDonald's also had that entrepreneurial spirit in every one of the jobs. Like there's so much autonomy to create it. And honestly, one of the things that I remember creating at McDonald's, I was an operational leader, and I had these group of restaurants that they were they're just messed up. They were underperforming. And quickly I learned the reason they were underperforming is they didn't have enough staff. The staff they had weren't trained properly. They had morale issues. I mean, it was people.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I had this idea. They had a discipline that every single week we would have what we called the ops meetings, and we would look at, revenue for the week, inventory costs, labor costs, profitability. It was just, they had a lot of discipline around running the business. And I learned a lot about running a business from them. And I'm like, well, we can keep looking at these awful numbers every single week, but I need to get to the root cause. So I created what I called a people P&L.
Okay.
And I made the managers every week, like, how many people did you interview? How many applications did you get? Who did you train? Who did you give performance coaching to?
Yeah.
And I created these metrics, and I'm like, we're not talking about inventory cost and labor cost or anything else until we get these people metrics right.
Wow.
And I think that's how I got the attention of the HR corporate people to say, hey, maybe she should come in and teach other operational leaders how to leverage. Because look, I wish I could say, I got into HR because I care about people and I just love working with people, which is all true.
Yeah, it's very true.
But honestly, Mike, I learned at a very young age, if you invest in people, if you tell them that and put a vision in them of what they can accomplish and you motivate them and you treat them like real people, guess what happens in business? You make more money.
And things flourish.
You make more money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is like the most magical business secret ever. And it really is kind of discouraging to me that every leader in America doesn't know that. Every leader in the world doesn't know that, right? Because it is such an amazing lever to really drive business outcomes. So that was an example of some of the things that I innovated at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So maybe not big programs or new processes and things like that, but we had a lot of autonomy on how to get the work done, which was pretty cool.
That's
Even though they're
great.
so process driven, they also give you so much autonomy to build and create and to improve.
Yeah, what a culture. And we wonder why they're one of the most globally recognized brands in the world.
Right. Yeah, well-run company for sure.
Very well run.
Yeah.
Do you, so as a part of the journey to the C-suite, you saw like you were looking for a part of competitive advantage, I assume. For yourself personally.
Sure.
Like, what can I do?
Yeah, and equipping, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure if there were things and parts of the business that I hadn't been exposed to yet, that I did the work. Yeah.
What did you gain most from your Executive MBA experience?
Definitely the cohort experience and the relationships. I mean, they tell you from day one and you don't really realize it until you experience it, but you learn equally, if not more, from each other than you do the professor. So I just loved the intimate cohort experience. You go deep with these people very, very quickly because you're working hard with them every single week, right? We're going to class one day all week, either on Friday or Saturday at the time. I don't know how it's changed now, and then maybe, sometimes 10, 20 hours worth of homework in between, you're meeting with your group. So a real intense experience, which we can all imagine those times in our career where you have those concentrated, intense, like we got a big thing that we've got to do.
Yeah.
And so you just develop these relationships. And as a matter of fact, my cohort group, we've gone on trips together. We still occasionally get together for dinner or things like that. So we still feel so closely connected. But it was just such a great experience to learn from one another. And the professors were fantastic. We had some amazing professors, and then just the whole support infrastructure at Xavier. It was an amazing experience.
That's awesome. Yeah. And the consideration of going into the program and then your move to begin the promotion process and application process to become a C-suite leader. What motivated you? Why did you want to become a C-suite leader? Why did you want to move from a key executive to be in the C-suite, making the C-suite decisions?
Well, I mean, who wouldn't? I think for me, it was just the opportunity to drive more change and have more influence, right?
Okay.
And I mean, especially like a woman in that industry, I don't take it for granted how rare of an opportunity that is, right? That's still such a small percentage of the overall C-suites across, corporate companies across America. And I saw that, hey, that might be a reality, and I wanted to go for it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What were some of the dynamics or immediate barriers or ceilings or things that you experienced and either pushed through yourself to become a C-suite leader, or decided when I'm in that seat, I'm going to start dismantling these challenges that I see, that whether it's women, whether it's individuals who need part-time work to meet their family needs. What did you start? What were the big things that you wanted to create some legacy around?
Well, first of all, I think just what HR could bring to the table first and foremost.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway, Mike.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
that's we want that. We love our HR leaders.
I'm just going to anyway. When I interviewed for the job, I look back on it now and kind of laugh. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I took the job. I interviewed with some of the executives that were there at the time, and no longer there. And we're all very supportive, but a lot of them are like, well, yeah, HR is kind of like not the same status as everyone else. You're kind of a second, class citizen, and HR has never really been anything that we care about here that much. And, just very, and when I went into that job, I had somebody look up, what is the longest tenured CHRO the bank has ever had? And it was 19 months at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I just was so driven to go, all right, I want that job. And the very first leadership team I had in the C-suite, I told them, I'm like, look, I've looked, you've run everybody off within 19 months, but you won't run me off in 19 months.
Yeah.
As soon as I pass that threshold, I'm going to remind you.
Yeah.
And I ended up being the CHRO for 4 or 5 years before I got promoted to chief administrative officer.
Wow.
And then took a lot more. But I really had the opportunity to really partner with the businesses. And like I said, the executive team embraced me. We're very open to change and very open to a vision of what it could be.
That's awesome.
And so it was really exciting for me to be able to be at the helm of that. And then, so first it was, how do we leverage people in this business as a strategic driver?
Sure.
And how do we partner appropriately with the business to drive the business, not just be bureaucracy and not just be, a necessary evil. And then from there, just continuing to look at what are the opportunities, where are these underutilized talent forces? I looked at, I partnered with an organization called Project Surge to bring in people with cognitive disabilities into our operations and other areas, and looked at, what are some of the things that we're not doing that we should, really putting programs in place to accelerate the development of women and minorities and things like that. So got to do a lot of things, had a lot of support, and very much like McDonald's, I've been so lucky that I've worked for companies that were like, look, you got a smart idea, you got a good idea, go, right? Do it.
We trust you as a leader. And I think that's one lesson for us all to learn is, are we providing that kind of environment to let great leaders and great talent that lives inside of us? We talk a lot about, Teresa, unlocking human potential.
Right.
And we believe it's there. How do you as a leader amplify that and pull that out and inspire people to just go boldly?
Right.
If you see something, you think, let's go.
Right.
We trust you.
Yeah.
And we also know we all live with those consequences, if there are any, if there's a bad decision made, which I'm sure we've all had those where you're like, oh, I'm going to learn a lot from that and not do that again. But this is where the boldness comes from. This is where innovation comes from. And look at the third is still a leader in their category.
Yeah, it's
an
great
incredible
company.
organization,
great
growing.
Company.
I hear their stock price is going really well right now.
They're going great. Recent acquisition.
Yes.
Great.
So as you moved in, so the 19-month thing, let's dive into that for a second. So you crossed over the 19 months.
I did.
and remained for many years. What do you think leadership-wise you brought to that role that may not have existed or that was different, that was needed in the position?
I think the business background definitely helped me, right? Being in a position where I've had that operational, I've ran a P&L, I understand some of the challenges of the business. I think that was part of it. I think my ability to speak the truth and do it with kindness and collaboration, but also say the hard things that had to be said and just also raise my hand, right? Just when I saw a problem, being willing to jump in and fix it. But I think courageous leadership is so important in the C-suite, right? It's really easy to, and I think sometimes the more power we get, the more accolades we get, the more money we get, the more we're afraid of losing all those things. And so, I used to, I've told this before, but I used to have this thing on my computer, this quote that talked about never be afraid to be fired. Because if you get too tied to things for financial reason or otherwise, it'll limit your ability to speak the truth and to act in integrity. And I've always thought about that, right? Don't ever be tempted to silence your voice because of what it would cost you, right? Just live your values and speak the truth. And I tried to lead as a leader like that, but I also tried to lead as an authentic leader that could connect to anybody. I would have people all the time that would be like, you're just such a real person. And I'm like, well, what did you think I was? Right. Of course. Right. Yeah. Right. Of course I'm a real person. Yeah.
I love that definition of courageous leadership. have you ran into that? Like, is there a time where you were like, boy, the courageous thing to do is this, the easier thing to do is this, but you know what? I'm going to lean into this despite the ultimate outcome.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I can't talk about all those times.
Sure.
But yeah, there was a couple of times in my career where I was fully expecting to get fired. But I knew I had to and maybe not like blatantly fired because it wasn't a performance issue.
Sure.
But definitely if I go forward and I do this, I'm going to fall out of favor. Or I may not, I may not be here long term.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And in all cases, it was okay, right? But that fear was there.
Yeah.
That fear was there.
When you're in the C-suite, do you have discussions with your peers about that kind of leadership decisioning?
Oh, sure.
And there's authenticity.
Sure.
And I believe, I'm asking this to be like, I haven't, there's a perspective that some C-suite, the reason why leaders don't stay is because leaders make the bold decisions. And as you just referenced, they either get let go or that's not a good fit here, or they decide I'm out because if we're not making this kind of decision, I'm out. It seems like with your tenure, you were in leadership teams that like, we're going to make bold decisions together. We're not going to get ego stricken and stuck in our ways. We're going to keep driving for better culture and greater impact. And had you ever experienced the other side of it where it was a toxic culture? You've always been in some really healthy environments.
I've had, and every culture is both healthy and has unhealthy aspects, right?
Sure.
I have been so fortunate to work with a team of executives and professionals that were full of integrity,
That's
right?
awesome.
And so, but we would have the hard conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like, is this the right thing to do?
Right.
And I've always appreciated that I've had the opportunity to work with people that had shared values.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't stay somewhere where I couldn't say that, right?
Yeah, we have a guest who's been on Lynn Rule, and she talks about being fully integrous. Like being fully integrous means we make decisions and we say the things that need to be said versus the things that people want to hear.
Right.
And leading with positive culture doesn't mean avoiding conflict.
Oh, no.
Doesn't mean not talking about the really tough things or being afraid. We need to talk even when we're afraid. We need to discuss real decisions that have to be made as leaders.
And I would say you can't have a culture of integrity without conflict.
Without this,
right? If you don't have any conflict, then I would argue there's a lot that's not being said. Or again, you're posturing, or you're keeping the peace so that you don't have any negative consequences.
Yeah, not a great leadership.
If I don't see any conflict or any disagreement or any pushing on each other, then I don't think that's a culture of integrity.
That's right.
There are things that aren't being said that should be said.
Yeah.
And that's not, I think so many people think of conflict as ruthless and hard and unkind, and it's none of those things. I mean, I really believe in like Lencioni's model of healthy conflict, right? You have to have
Must have it.
Otherwise, you're going to have groupthink, or people are not going to push on each other, and you're not going to get to the right answer.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of that in the C-suite at Fifth Third, and I loved it, right? Because we had a lot of great thinking and leaders that respected one another, but pushed each other to get to the right answer. Yeah.
There is a component of skill building in order to do that, right? There's approaches, and there's a level of trust you have to have with one another in order to have really healthy conflict.
Yeah, for sure.
That level of trust has to exist.
I agree.
Are there any key pieces of wisdom that you might have on if I'm a leader sitting here going, I know what needs to be said, but our culture just doesn't say it? Are there any, like, what's your encouragement to that leader listening right now who's sitting there going, okay, I need to step forward and make this statement, even though it's going to create disagreement?
You got to say it, and don't be a jerk, right?
There you go.
like don't do it the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
But you have to say it, and you have to test, is this a safe place for me to bring my authentic self and to bring my thinking to the table? But constantly swallowing your voice, whether it's at work or home or whatever, is not going to lead to a good place.
Yeah.
And I've learned that in many ways over the years, right? And so You have to find your voice. And that's what I would tell my younger self, honestly. And I think people that have worked for me throughout my career would probably say I've had that voice, but I would tell my younger self to even find it earlier, right?
Really?
Because it's so important to find your voice and to make sure that you have an environment where you can be heard. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Teresa, I've had the pleasure of working with HR leaders in this community for my entire career.
Yeah.
Many of which have had experience working under you and who have shared what you mentioned earlier about your supervisor at McDonald's that was like, we're going to give you space to be your best self because you've given your all to us. Now it's our time to step in.
Yeah.
What a courageous leader to say that. And I believe from what I've heard over the years, you've done the same for others, right? You've removed barriers and you've identified where some people would say, you know what, I need to make a change because it no longer fits with lifestyle. You've removed barriers to have people, no, why don't you stay and let's just remove the barriers for you so you can be here. Can you talk a little bit about that? Some of the, again, back to the programmatics that you built at Fifth Third that I believe you became nationally known for with your maternity programs and your the flexible workforce and the sharing of role sharing and concierge services. Could you share, like, where did you see those needs? And then what did it take to build out an actual program that enabled that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think two things come to my mind when you say that. I mean, I do care about people and individuals. And I think that we need to think more creatively about some of these systems. And I used to tell my team all the time, like, okay, it's very helpful for you to tell me what the handbook says. It's very helpful for you to tell me what processes and benefits we have in place. But I would really like for you to set all of that aside and just look me in the eye and tell me what is the right thing to do here.
Yeah.
What's the right thing to do?
Wow.
And maybe there's not a policy for that. And maybe there's not a program for that. And if the right thing to do doesn't exist in a program or policy, we should probably go change that, right? So build the program, change the policy. But sometimes, and especially HR, we can be our greatest
stuck in our process,
processes, right? Like, wow, the handbook says, I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to beat somebody over the head with the handbook, like, let's make sure that,
is it even logical?
Is it logical? And it doesn't always, it's not going to work. You put processes in place for 80% of the instances, right?
Yeah.
But don't force the other 20% into a process that doesn't work, right? Yeah. So we have to think creatively and things like the maternity concierge. I mean, I started looking at the data and saw that women in their first year after having a child was terminating at twice the rate. And, started talking to people and, there's parents that make that decision because it's the right thing for their family. And to that I say, great, like, how can we support you? And thank you for all you've done. But there's other parents that sat across the table for me and said, I can't manage it all. I need help. And here's what I'm dealing with. And I'm like, well, what if we did this? And a lot of it, I want to go back to that specific situation because I actually had a town hall where we were just kind of having real talk about things. And somebody in the crowd was courageous. And they, I had gone through look at everything we do here and everything we do there. And isn't this great? And she raised her hand and she's like, you know what isn't great? Our maternity benefits. I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. And so she started talking. And then all the other people in the crowd kind of caught some courage too. I was like, I agree. And I agree.
Wow.
And in that moment, I said, okay, I don't have the answer sitting right here, but everybody that has a voice on this, I would like to kind of form a cross-functional team. I want you to come. I want you to tell me more about what you're upset about it. And I want you to agree to be like brainstorming on the solution.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the birth of the maternity concierge. So just what I had talked about finding your voice, a lot of that was like, oh yeah, I can take credit for going, oh, I put this in place or that in place. But that wouldn't have even happened had not someone else not had their voice to say, this is a problem and it's not as good as you think it is.
Yeah. And the culture that you created to allow people and encourage people to raise their hand, even in disagreement.
That's right.
So powerful.
That's right.
So someone can sit and listen and go, well, nobody's ever done that. Well, maybe because when it did happen, they were like disbarred, right? From the culture versus like, wow, that was a town hall. Someone publicly said, and again, that's a courageous leader who's willing to create the culture to do that. So, and what I hear from you is that you're not the only one that set that tone and culture, but it's so important to call out for our listeners because so many of us desire that. If you're listening to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, you desire the whole person, the whole impact, and how can we unlock this greatest potential?
Right.
And these are those little micro things that if we just glance over, I'm like, oh, that was a great, you asked the right question and someone raised their hand. That takes work to ask the right question and for somebody to raise their hand.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah.
congratulations for creating that environment. And so that was call it an obvious thing where people came forward and you said, wow, why don't we look at that policy? And why don't we create a system around that? How many people does this impact? You said twice the rate.
It was twice the rate.
Wow.
And we had, in the first year after launching the program, decreased it by 25%. So it was a significant, immediate improvement.
I remember distinctively, and I don't remember exactly what year, but I remember meeting with the head of executive search at Fifth Third.
Okay.
And it's well over a decade. It might have been maybe 2 decades ago.
Okay.
And I remember at the time it was a he, and he said, Mike, the thing about our brand, and I was just building a relationship, getting to know people.
Sure.
And he was like, the thing about our brand that I try to tell our recruiting team is that every applicant to a job is a possible customer to the enterprise. And I don't know where that came from, but how you just lit up, it's like, that's one of the things we talk a lot about. And I remembered it was like So I have spent the last 2 decades reminding companies of just that comment that this gentleman told me. And he was like, every applicant, every candidate experience. This is when like employment brand candidate experience was, coming online. Every conference is talking about it. And when he said that, like, oh, that makes total sense. Every applicant is a possible customer to the enterprise. So the experience here could literally change and have a positive impact or have a negative impact.
Yes.
And is that something you all preached culturally?
And that was a big thing with me personally, and it still is, right?
Okay.
And I said that over and over again, right? And even employees, right? We would talk about that. The worst employee could be your best customer, right?
Yeah.
So we have dual relationships with every person that we interact with, whether it is an applicant. I remember talking when I was a CAO and I had strategic sourcing and procurement vendor management. And that was a whole different concept. I remember debating with the head of procurement at the time. I'm like, look, these vendors are potential customers or actual customers.
Yeah, so be
right?
careful how much.
Right. So like we want to have healthy relationships with everybody we interact with, whether it is a customer in the banking center, whether it is a vendor, whether it's an employee. We have dual relationships and our brand goes across all of those touch points.
Yeah.
And so often we look at things through our own lens versus the broader lens of every interaction counts.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you also made some other pivotal decisions as you were the CAO, and you decided at some point to depart. And retire from corporate America to start something.
Yep.
Can help me walk through and help our audience hear what was this lingering thing, this nagging voice in your head and heart that where did it start? And then at what point did you decide, you know what, it's time?
Yeah. I had decided that on my 50th birthday, I was going to kind of go on a week's vacation all by myself.
Okay.
And do a little bit of a reflection period. Really because, I was very fortunate. I got in the C-suite really, really early. So had just turned 40. I had, in my early 40s. So by that time, I'm like, by the time I get to 50, it's going to be almost 10 years in the C-suite.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to be young, and I need to really stop and just check in. How am I doing in every aspect of life, with my health, with my career, with my relationships, and came to a lot of conclusions that week on a lot of different things. And one of the things that I really, really felt was, hey, you either need to like buckle in and get comfortable and just do this for the next 15 years or so, which is a great option, right? It was a great job.
Option A is a great option.
Right. Yeah. Option A is a great option. It was a great job, a great company, got, financially rewarding, all the things. I said I could just settle in and do that. Or I could really take another decade or two to do something wildly different. And what do I want to do? And I always had an instinct that I wouldn't die with banker on the business card.
Okay.
I knew there'd be something else. I just didn't know when. And it just became more and more clear to me that, yeah, it's now. Let's do it.
Time.
Let's do it while you're still youngish and you've got some energy to do something else big.
So were you encouraged by others to take a week-long vacation by yourself to reflect?
Not really. You know, I had read the book Halftime. Have you ever read that book?
Yep. Bob Buford, I think is the author.
Yeah. I read that book and I'm like, oh, okay, really? Halftime? Am I getting close to halftime in my life? I'm like, yeah, I think I am.
Wow.
And so that book had a real impact on me to say, okay, like I don't want to just coast. I don't want to just get comfortable and get on the treadmill and just keep going on the same treadmill every day. Not that it wasn't a great treadmill, but I'm just like, I want to make sure that I'm really living on purpose and that I'm making a very purposeful decision at this point in my life, you know, and understand that came with privilege because I had the privilege to have some financial freedom, to have choices and to think, okay, is this what I still want to do or do I want to do something different? It was scary as heck. I mean, it was so scary because I'm like, I'm going to leave all of this. Like people work their whole lives to have what I have and I'm just going to walk out the door and start from scratch. And I don't know anything about starting my own business and doing all these things. And I didn't even know exactly. I mean, I think a lot of people have this theory that I knew exactly this business idea before I left. I did not.
Yeah.
I knew I would do something entrepreneurial. I felt it was probably going to be in the talent space. I have a heart for women. I knew it was going to be something around that, but it was really about a year after that it really started to crystallize for me what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. So Teresa, we talk a lot about retreats and creating space for ourselves. We have a great relationship with a retreat location down in the gorge called Dappled Light.
Okay.
I go to Montana or Wyoming every fall to a couple of ranches through an organization called Refuge Foundation. When I read that, I think your retreat was in North Carolina. Was it in the Blue Ridge Mountains? Was it like perfect setting? Yeah. And I say that like some people don't take that time ever. We encourage people to take that time to even if it's a day or three, right? There's been retreats that we've probably both been on with various groups and roundtables that like 3 days in Napa or 3 days in, the gorge or 3 days in Hocking Hills, a lot of reflection can happen there.
Yeah.
And in that reflection, you decided, I think it's time for me to do something different.
Yeah.
How did you choose what different was? I know you mentioned you have a passion for women, you have a passion for workforce and talent, but how did you end up zoning in on what Reserve Squad is today?
Well, I think first of all, like my faith is super important to me. And I did a lot of prayer and reflection and just really kind of was open-handed to, okay, what's next? And so, but also just really having time to think about like, what is wrong from a workforce structure? You know, I care a lot about talent structures and spent a lot of years working on them. And I'm like, what's wrong with the structures we have today? What's not working? How is the landscape of talent changing? And I couldn't have even seen everything. And so the timing was just so crazy because, you know, I officially launched kind of the beginning of 21, left Fifth Third, middle of 19. But in the middle of all of that was, first of all, I got my own cancer diagnosis right after I left the bank. And then after getting through that, then COVID hit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the world is changing so much. And then you really started seeing, wow, the workforce dynamics and expectations and all of that is changing really rapidly. So the timing was pretty cool for me to dig in and just to look and think about things differently. Yeah.
So you mentioned cancer diagnosis. That was after you departed from Fifth Third?
Yeah, like 90 days after.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I got this new chapter I'm going to unfold and what is it going to hold? And literally like 3 months after, I'm like, oh, now I have breast cancer. I did not predict that, right? That's not what I expected. But in hindsight, it was just so amazing for me to have that time to really do what I wanted to do, get treated where I wanted to get treated, really just focus on my health. Had I still had that big job, I would have just fit cancer treatments in between meetings.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to do that. So in a lot of ways, it was just like a really good blessing that I had that space. Yeah.
I can, and knowing the difficulty, the challenge, the pressure of being in the C-suite in whatever size organization.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure there's been reflection where you've helped probably other women go through the same, like you were at the top of the game and you still are at the top of your game. The game just looks different, right? You just changed the game board. Is your team stretched thin because you can't find strong leaders? We understand how exhausting it is to carry the weight when positions stay open. Centennial specializes in leadership search, and for over 5 decades, we've helped organizations like yours find the right people for critical leadership positions. Our global network and time-tested process means we don't just fill positions, we find leaders who will elevate your team and help you achieve your vision. Stop settling for good enough. Visit centennialinc.com to discuss your leadership search needs today. Have you found yourself having those discussions where women are calling or leaders are calling and saying, like, I'm struggling with this. How did you face this decision when you were in that role?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I do look at things in hindsight and say, oh, I could have been healthier about things, right? Like you talk about your reflection time. I have very strong rhythms in place now. I do quiet time every single morning. I do a day retreat every quarter. I have an annual reflection time. I have a week that I take a trip alone every year. I have a lot of really purposeful,
important rhythms,
rhythms to keep me on track. That I wish I would have had more in the C-suite. And it's always easier to look back and go, oh, I should have done that. Well, you're in the midst of it. And I should have slept better. And I should have done all of these things. Yeah. But it's easy when you get in this swirl to not take care of yourself as much as you should. So when I talk to women in that right now, I really try to encourage them. And just little things like, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. My mammogram was late. One of the very first things that I did was like, oh, I've been putting all of those tests off. I should go get them now.
Oh, wow.
And that's how it was discovered. And, now my message is like, you're not too busy for a mammogram. You're not too busy for a colonoscopy or whatever test men and women need to take, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you're not too busy. Do it. And so, I can talk to women about things I did right. And I can also talk to women about things I wish I would have done. Yeah. And now I can see more clearly on the other side.
Yeah, I do wonder with certain friends who have had a diagnosis and not made it, how they could have if they would have done the things when in the timing they were supposed to versus just skip it another year.
Right.
We've all been there.
Yeah, for sure.
And you hear that early diagnosis makes
so important.
All the difference in the world.
So important.
And something, by God's grace that it was found early for yourself and you were able to navigate through that. But what a lesson learned to be able to tell people.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure people leave the room and go, you know what? I need to make that phone call.
Exactly.
Right. So we encourage everyone to make that phone call.
Yes, definitely.
Do you, with the timing, with the launch of Reserve Squad, the timeline that you just laid out from, end of or middle to end of 19 to 2021, what barriers did you feel like you had to battle through, the uncomfortable things that were, like during the middle of the reflection of like, maybe I shouldn't do this? Were there any of those that you had to break through? Yeah.
The day we went kind of live on our website and it was like my very first LinkedIn post ever about Reserve Squad, I like literally didn't sleep the night before. Wow. I remember laying in bed going, this is terrifying. What are you doing? Your entire reputation is on the line. So all of those like negative thoughts that you can start spiraling on, like, why are you doing this? You don't even need to do this. Just don't do this. Go do something like, go work in nonprofit or something. Or you know what I mean? I kept on like, do all these other safer things because you're going to put your neck out there. And this is a whole new concept that's not even in the marketplace. No one has ever bought this before, but you're going to spin it up and try to sell it. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I like had this. And I just laid there and I just thought and I prayed. And I finally got to a point where I'm like, I'm just doing it. If it fails, it fails.
Yeah.
Like I had to get it, I had to get my head around, there's a good chance. Because look at the statistics of new businesses that do fail, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like you're going to try all of this hard stuff and it may fall flat on your face and you might be embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still going to do it? And then I did it, but it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And, that was even more terrifying than leaving, right? Because I think some people could be like, oh, well, okay, why are you leaving? You're young and you're at the top of your career. But other people were like, well, if you don't have to and you want to leave, like, good for you. So I was kind of that was scary, but your whole, my whole identity and
There's
everything
nothing like
else,
launching a startup.
right? Was like, oh my gosh. And then you launch it and you're like, oh, where are my people? Like, I know how to be a corporate executive. This whole like startup space is the Wild West.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Who do I go to? I remember meeting with you like early on. I was just, anybody would have coffee with me. I'm having coffee. I'm like, can somebody give me something? Right.
Yes.
To try to figure out, how do I do this? How do I fund this thing? Like, how do I, get all of these things together? So
the fear of reservation and the fear of don't go is like this head fear of, maybe I shouldn't, what am I thinking? I feel like I'm going to throw up. Do I really want to make this announcement? Versus the fear that's the heart fear of like, I'm doing it anyway. What do I have to lose? Why not do it now?
Right,
and I believe your conviction of the work you do is what led you to say, I'm going anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you see, even though it's never been done before, you see the impact firsthand.
Absolutely.
And you almost like maybe, was there any, to me, it feels like, did you beta test a little bit of that at Fifth Third by changing some of the policies?
A little bit. And I could see the problem clearly.
Yeah, very clearly.
Yeah.
So define the problem.
Well, for me, a lot of it is just, I saw amazing people walk out the door every single day that still had capacity and a desire to work, but we didn't have a structure to re-engage them, right? So that could be mid-career parents, right? I don't know how many women particularly, but it doesn't have to be women. It could have been women or men that sat across from me and said, look, I just can't do it all. I would do something, but even your part-time schedule, I can't commit to those hours every single week.
Right,
and
the structure.
And we would just try to brainstorm it, and some we would try to work around and some we couldn't. And the ones that we couldn't drove me crazy because I'm like, this person was like on our succession planning list and they're rock stars and they're top performers and they can do something.
Yeah.
And same thing with retirees. Like, look, I wouldn't mind working a little bit, but I don't need or want to work 60 hours a week anymore. So it's like all of this great talent that we'd invested in is walking out the door. At the same time, we're constantly hiring people. We're going to contractors. We're paying like $1 gazillion for consultants
that don't know
the business. Yeah. I'm like, this is crazy. We've got to figure out a way. And then companies were also always talking about boomerang employees and off ramps and on ramps. And I'm like, hey, why are we playing boomerang and doing on and off ramps? Why don't we just create a new lane on the highway, right? We got to get new talent structures where people can kind of shift up and shift down and still stay engaged with a company, but in a way that works for where they're at in their life stage.
Yeah.
And we have, those surges and demands too. I grew up in the military. My dad was a career military guy. And, the concept of reservist was always really fascinating to me. They have this huge workforce of active duty, but then when there's a surge in demand, they've got this workforce that they can call up at a moment's notice. And corporate America doesn't have that elasticity with their workforce, which the other thing that was really hard on me and on my heart in corporate America was the binging and purging of talent, right? Hiring a bunch of people and then laying people off. And you see it in the news every day. Big companies do it all the time, laying off 100 people, laying off 500 people. And I'm like, gosh, that's expensive and it's hard on humans.
Yeah.
It's hard on humans. Like, is there a way that we can kind of go up and down and make that more elastic without the big financial or human cost? And so there was just a lot of problems that I saw with workforce structures. And honestly, the workforce structures we have in place are pretty freaking old, right? Yeah. We've been kind of doing the same thing for 100 years with full-time and part-time and, and we've got to, when I talk about, thinking about a different way to work, people are automatically thinking like remote and in an office. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how do you use those FTE dollars more strategically so that your workforce can be more elastic and you can preserve the investment you've already made in talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in what type or size scale of organization does your model work best in?
Yeah.
And then can it work in small to, mid-market organizations as well?
Yeah, we primarily work with larger companies that have a good alumni workforce because
Okay.
it really is an alumni-based program.
Okay.
Occasionally, we can leverage some of those alumni in our larger programs to help out a smaller mid-sized business, but our primary client really is larger companies with a pretty sizable alumni base. Mm-hmm.
And then you're just to reiterate what I believe the model is you have individuals that for whatever reason need to either back down or remove themselves from a full-time 40 to 65 hour a week job.
Mm-hmm.
And then this role allows them to plug back into the same organization they're an alumni of, which then they know the culture. They might even know the team and the product and whatever else they're working on. There's not an option for them to go full-time right now, whether it's life or whether it's maybe the organization itself just doesn't have a full-time need, but could really use you 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or on a project basis.
Right. And it's a talent solution for the company and a benefit to their employees to say, hey, you're leaving us. If you're not going to work full-time somewhere else, you can keep a foot in here if you want.
Yeah.
So it's like keep a foot in our company. You don't have to leave us altogether. Why don't you go into reserve for us? Stay in community with people you know. And we do have kind of a community platform that they can engage in, and they can stay in contact with their buddies they worked with. And we do events and development and things like that for them as well. So it's kind of like an alumni management program. But then when the company, they've got this whole extended talent workforce that they can tap into when they need it. So it's also a benefit for the company to say, hey, on your way out the door, don't forget about us. Keep a foot in if you're not going to go work full-time somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different reasons: retirement, stay-at-home parents, trailing spouses. I need to stop for education purposes.
Sure.
So there's all kinds of reasons why people are leaving you with capacity.
Yeah. That's phenomenal to see it firsthand and then to build a model around it. Was there ever a time where, and you mentioned you recognize there is no structure for this? This is something you blazed the trail that didn't exist. You built an extra lane on the employment highway, where you thought maybe they've tried it before and maybe this is going to fail?
Well, I think my first realization was when I started trying to find someone else that was doing this, I couldn't
find it.
Yeah, and there were some companies that are like, oh yeah, they're re-engaging alumni, but it's really because a manager knew a person and then they knew that they created an LLC and then they made a side deal with them, right? Yeah. And so a lot of companies are like, well, yeah, we kind of do this. But I still can't find companies that have a program that's professionally managed to do this, right? Either internally or externally. So there's not consistency. There's all of these individual contracts with people. Whereas we provide that structure, that compliance, that consistency to really have kind of a program that everybody can participate in. So we're just starting to kind of build that awareness in the marketplace.
Yeah, we had a similar startup experience where when we were being asked to benchmark, when Centennial launched Talent Magnet Institute, we couldn't find a model that was identical to what we wanted to build. And what we believe and what our clients told us is that part of the journey of launching it is that the industry of leadership and learning is so fragmented.
Yeah.
And we had this vision of like, we're going to put it all together. But then you start questioning yourself of like, I wonder why no one else has done this. And why do people either do learning on a topic, but not have a whole team of coaches and a whole team of learners and a whole team of designers.
Right.
And so we've had that journey as well of like, you know what, we're going to do it because we know customers are asking for it. And you also have to educate people a lot about what your model is. Right. Because they have all these other reasons why they've done it this other way for 30 years.
Right, for sure.
Versus what we would call the better way.
Yeah.
Right? This is the better way of doing that.
Yeah.
Do you, so share with me a little bit more about the ministry side of your work, because you started a nonprofit.
Yeah. So because starting a startup wasn't enough, I thought I'd also start a
you got
nonprofit,
a
right?
serial entrepreneur. That's why we're here. I love this.
Right,
You're
right.
one of my
Yeah,
people.
Right. So I started, Reserve Squad, and then also saw a need from a faith perspective to do something different for women.
Okay.
I've always had a heart for empowering, inspiring, trying to lift women. And there's all kinds of ways I did that in my corporate career to try to really accelerate and help women just step into their purpose and how they were made.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when I left corporate America, I started getting more involved in my church and things like that. And I grew up in church with a much more conservative background than how I practice today. And unfortunately, I just got a lot of wrong messages about women and what God thought about women. And I decided, that needs to change. And so I started a nonprofit called Women Activated. Our byline is God never intended women to sit on the sidelines. And so I very much want to show them what Jesus said about women, which is pretty radical. I had to go through my own faith journey where I kind of deconstructed to a certain degree, not because I walked away from believing in God, but I walked away with some of the traditional views that I had been taught and started to search for the answers myself. And I tell women, like, look, I had a conversation at God at one point and said, like, look, I believe in you, but all this other stuff I'm hearing about what women can and can't do in the church, like, that's going to have to be a hard pass for me. That doesn't make sense. And I decided to read the Bible myself to find out what God really said about women. And by the time I was done, I decided it was one of the most radical books on feminism I've ever written. Jesus was radical with the way he thought about women. And so now I am very inspired to make sure other women see that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Another question to kind of pull back from, or to pull forward the conversation we started with. So you also have Kayla works in your business.
Yeah.
So,
Kayla's my daughter.
And she's the one we referenced earlier and she's in your business as a community director?
She is a client manager.
Client manager?
Yeah.
How is that?
Amazing. Amazing. Like, just, it surpasses my wildest dreams. When I first decided to bring her in the business, that was another kind of, this is a scary decision, right? Like, I really treasure my relationship with my children and don't ever want anything to complicate that unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Decided to bring her in the business. And I actually knew the person that she had worked for previously. And she had told me, she said, all right, you can have her, but, she's extraordinary, Teresa. And I was like, well, yeah, you're just saying that. And then I got her in the business, and Mike, she's extraordinary. She's so good.
That's awesome.
So it's just really fun to work with her, and it's just been a really healthy relationship. And it's actually helped us deepen our personal relationship as well.
Sure.
It's been great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that success.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So if someone asked, you reference, you basically created 2 startups. You have this amazing ministry that you're building and, I'd love the mention, like, you know what, I'm going to go read the Bible for myself and see what it says about this topic that I'm having a disagreement in. The pursuit of something different is a major, like category of a leader that you are. You see things and you're like, there's got to be a different way, or I don't agree with that. Let's go research it, find it. What do you believe is inside of you that makes you willing to tackle all of this?
I don't know.
Some say us entrepreneurs are a little wild and crazy. So
I don't know. I mean, I like solving problems. I really do. I like looking at things differently, and I do believe I'm creative. I do think that I have courage, and that I have leaned into also the possibility of failure, and that doesn't seem so bad. So I like to blaze new trails and to do things differently. And ultimately, I like to see the good that comes out of it, right? And even like, I don't think it'll happen. Reserve Squad is super healthy right now, and I'm so excited about the growth we're seeing and all of those things. But Mike, if it collapsed tomorrow, I've done good work. My team has done good work. We've changed lives. I've had people tell me that their life is different because the solution came to the table. And I can just be so happy about that. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, I think the drive in me to like make a difference for people is probably the most important thing.
That's great. Teresa, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
What does unconventional leadership mean to you?
Unconventional leadership. I think I have to go back to everything we've been talking about today. It is the courage to live like authentically, and the courage to really be a leader who leads with their actions and not just their words.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Teresa, thank you so much for being in the studio. I want to encourage all of you to share thoughts, questions, comments. What is some of the greatest takeaways, and what did you feel stir up inside of you today from this episode? There's so many. I've even got a couple things myself, including ensuring my rhythms are locked in for the remaining balance of this year, and continue leaning in boldly to the uncomfortable and to the things that challenge us, because we all can get stuck in the, should I really do this? Am I willing to put this out and be bold and take this next step? So I also want to thank Xavier's Executive MBA program for their partnership for this episode and for the Unconventional Leadership Podcast partnership. I want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for all of the creative genius to bring this episode to our millions of listeners. And we look forward to having you and join us in the next conversation.